What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now, Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to look back at For Honor. It just celebrated its 6th birthday a week ago, actually on Valentine's Day. So For Honor released back in 2017. I want to talk about it in a couple different ways in this video. I want to talk about what it was back then, my experience playing it, and then kind of where it's gone over the years up until today. Don't let the title entirely fool you. I actually really like this game. The sad state of For Honor in 2023 is simply that it's died, I believe, and there have been some changes. It's just not full of life anymore. It actually felt a little depressing to go back into it and kind of just a hearkening to better times, what used to be for this game. So let's go back to when it released first and talk about that. This game actually did really well. Sales sold really well. People were playing it. The all-time peak, I believe, on Steam was somewhere around 216,000 people. It was a pretty popular game. And honestly, if you look at historically where it's gone on Steam, yes, right now it's not, not very populated, not very full. And yes, that's just Steam, right, because it's on PlayStation and Xbox as well. However, it is a pretty good indicator that this game was heavily played back in the day, and then, as time has gone on, less and less people, which is kind of obvious for seemingly a live service game, even though really it kind of wasn't, right? This was mainly a multiplayer thing. So when this game came out, had 12 heroes, and it's actually nuts to see the heroes back then to the heroes they've added since. There's now 32. They've added 20 characters in 6 years. That's quite a bit. Whenever you can, I guess, double the roster, or actually at this point, it's almost triple the roster, at least you've kept the game going and you've put as much of yourselves as you could possibly do. I was reading that it seems like fans that have stuck with this game, right, because I haven't, and I'll kind of explain my journey, but people that have stuck with this game for the full 6 years have talked about a lot of the changes that this game has made, whether it be modes or kind of tweaks here and there, has kind of just turned people off from the game. So that was kind of interesting to read. But high player count, pretty okay reviews too. Not that I go based off reviews, but this was a game, got around, I think, like a 78, 79. So basically like an 8 out of 10 kind of game. And I remember being so excited for this game. I don't know if they showed it the E3 prior, right? So it comes out February 14th, 2017. Maybe they showed it at E3 2016, but whenever they did show it, I was really into it. I was like, oh, this is cool. You're playing as these kind of elite heroes. You got like the little minions, right? You can kind of just slam right through them. But the point is, 1v1, that kind of just, you're going to personalize these characters. They're all going to be very different from each other, and you're going to take the other person out. And honestly, when this game came out, I loved it. In fact, this was one of the first streaks of good video views on the main channel on Podcast Now. I covered this game. I did a review. I did a couple compilation clips of some of like my best matches overall. We did ranking videos or tier lists kind of who was the best one. It's actually funny to look at it now in terms of what people think are the best characters and say, wow, actually a lot of the best characters are still the best characters that were 6 years ago, right? When the game first came out, the Nobushi, hopefully I'm saying that the character's name right. I think she's incredible. I've always really loved her, and she's still, I believe, in like S tiers nowadays. So I guess they haven't created characters necessarily better than her. But this game was a whole lot of fun. I actually played this with one of my closest friends of all time back then. We made videos together. And we enjoyed the heck out of it. We would play this game until 3, 4, 5 a.m. and we got quite good. This game, part of the reason why I liked it is it's kind of deep. There's move lists, right? And I'm really bad at games like Injustice or Mortal Kombat, really fighting games, Tekken, Street Fighter, just go literally down the list. And one of the things that always gets me with those games is like the 20 move combos. So you have to try to memorize. I'm not really great at that in terms of playing games. I like to just kind of go off of feel. But when you pull them off, you obviously become a lot more difficult to handle. For Honor is the same way, right? Each one of these characters is very unique. They got different speeds. They got different strengths. They got different weaknesses. Some of them you should grab more than others. Some of them you should stay at a distance more than others, right? This game is like that. And when you memorize these move sets, you can become extremely good. And I really believe that's what I was. My friend and I would go off on just like elite runs where we would do 2v2s, which was kind of our primary mode. 2v2s, you take your guy, you take him out. By the way, there was something called honor and For Honor back then. One thing I realized playing in 2023, the few people remaining, and we will talk about that, they have no class, they have no honor. Normally, when you do a 2v2, okay, or whatever, you battle your person. Actually, I think it's the rules or the unwritten rules, mainly 2v2. You battle your person. Whoever wins patiently waits for the other group to end, and then you face off against each other if there's a person remaining, right? So I'm facing somebody. If I win, I patiently wait for my partner versus the other enemy. I wait for that to end, and then if the enemy wins, I fight them. That is what I would call honor in this game. And that has been, for whatever reason, completely lost in the year of 2023. Nobody's got that class anymore. When you beat your guy, you just go over and you double team the other remaining player. There's times strategy-wise where you kind of can do that, but there's kind of unwritten rules. At least there were 6 years ago, and I am fed up with it nowadays. But no, honestly, the biggest culprit of the problems that this game has now is the lack of players, right? So honestly, the sad state of this game in 2023 is not, in my opinion, necessarily the quality. I always really enjoyed this game. I stuck around. So February of 2017, I imagine I stuck around for at least a year because I remember being part of 12 characters that start with it. Then they added a couple. And I remember being a part of that couple. And I remember, I think, even maybe making videos of like new rankings once new characters kind of came in. And the first wave was pretty okay. Looking at it now, it's like they added a pirate. Are you serious? Well, and I say that, maybe I say that and it sounds like I'm kind of going after that. I love pirates, right? So actually, but here's the thing. They cost money. You could buy them in the real world money, or you can unlock them in-game. I don't despise it. I think they cost too much. I believe new characters, at least when they come out originally, somewhere around like $8. Like Star Wars Battlefront 2 is always one I kind of think of, just such a big game, and they had the heroes being added. I would save up, right? So the characters would be, they announce, they're coming later this month. I'd play that game a couple days straight, save up, and I don't know, 40,000, whatever the currency for like Battlefront, and then General Grievous drops, and I put the money all towards him, the in-game stuff. I think it probably works the same way as For Honor. You just keep playing it. I didn't play it long enough now to, test it to see if they tweaked. Maybe those are some of the tweaks in the wrong direction, right? I feel like when the game came out, it was pretty fair. Like, I don't think I had that many problems. And honestly, you're going to enjoy certain characters over another. Like, out of the 12, I maybe really started to get into 3 or 4 of them. So, like, you got the other 12, and then once other characters start to come in and you try to buy them or unlock them, I imagine you're going to save up quite a few coin because it's like you're not spending it on all that much because you've kind of found your core group. Again, I actually think that's kind of fun. That's kind of cool. The point of this game is, realism to a certain degree. But again, each of these characters feels different. They have different move sets. Some of them are stronger against others. And it's always fun to play against the other person and try to read them, right? Like, what am I going to do? Honestly, it's my favorite style of, I brought up the Tekkens and the Street Fighters and stuff. I'm awful with those. This one, I felt good. Like, I felt probably the same thing, where your character, and the moves that you want to pull off, but it's also a chess match. You're waiting to see what the other person does. Your strategy kind of depends on how they come at you, right? If it's a faster character, maybe you approach that differently. If it's a slower character, you approach it differently. Also, depending on who you are. And I imagine that's the exact same thing in hardcore, right, when you get super good at fighting games, and because this kind of is a fighting game, right? So I've always loved that. I really did. I think what was the biggest culprit even back in the day, and probably why I stepped away from it, is, well, number one, I can only do it so much. I have a short attention span just like everybody else in the entire world, right? I can't do it over and over. Then you could say, well, there's all these different modes. Well, for me, it was always dueling. Dueling was my thing. So if I was playing by myself, it would normally be 1v1, or I would then try to trust these online, random people and do 2v2. But again, nowadays, I'm not doing that anymore because 2v2s can't be trusted. Or when I was playing with my friend, we would do 2v2s. That was like our thing. Things like domination, if that was even what it was called. The idea of a little bit bigger of a map, right? You're able to go around and you attack the small little minions, but you got capture points, right? You're trying to capture certain areas. those were fun. They would get kind of wild, right? Because you'd have a lot of things going on just in general. And that's when you could really get like the double and triple teams. And that stuff tends to get pretty annoying. I know they added, I believe it's called breach mode. You escort a ram and it tries to barrel through different gates. And then you try to get to the boss. I mean, it's fine. And again, that's kind of the thing to me is even when playing it now, I played it for, like 3-4 hours, I'd say, to kind of get back into it, to prepare for this video. And I liked it, but I really only liked the dueling stuff. And again, the biggest area of concern with this game in 2023 is one that's obvious. It's definitely obvious, but it's the lack of players. Even when you're in the loading screen, right, or you're picking the different things you can do, it'll say, and I always like games that say it. In fact, I think it should be mandatory that all games say it. Low activity, like medium, high activity, right? I love it when games say that. So, what sucks is actually like dueling always kind of has like medium. It's never like fully there. So you do that, but even the modes that would say high activity, I think one was Breach, if I'm not mistaken, when I was playing it. Breach said high activity. Now I was playing this, by the way, Friday and Saturday night. Like not at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., like a casual, you'd imagine other people would be playing it, right? So I'm not playing like on a Wednesday at like, 11:30 a.m. when like people are at school and work. You know what I mean? I was trying to pick a time where it would maybe be populated. And so it said high activity. I went into it, and it was me and maybe one or two others on my team, and then nobody on the other team. Was all A. Like, so many times I'd play the different modes, try to get my, feel of the game again, even 2v2s and stuff. It's hard to find people. It's really hard. A lot of times AIs take over, and it's just not the same. AIs, I think you can really, like, cheese. I think you can get them pretty easily. Maybe there's, like, difficult. I think, there's, like, the story side of things and stuff where you can set difficulties and stuff. So there is that. But when you're just doing the online stuff, when you have bots, you can totally feel it. If your team has a lot of bots, right, like on a 4v4, you feel that because you can't trust the bot to, like, save the day, right? If it's one human-controlled person, you're like, okay, maybe there's a chance. But if it's an AI bot, you're like, all right, well, they're screwed. It's just not going to work out for them. So that's really the case with this game. Again, I'm not going to pretend like I never liked it. This video is not meant to, like, hugely diss the game. I always thought this game was a very, very above-average game. It is my kind of personal fighting game. I would choose For Honor any day over, which is probably very controversial. I would choose For Honor over the Mortal Kombats and Injustices of the world simply because I get into this way more. I think the characters are much more diverse. I enjoy trying to get good at each one, trying to learn their things. And again, it's very similar to other kind of fighting things, but for whatever reason, it just clicks for me. The biggest issue is, and it's an obvious one, right? 6 years later, of course, the game isn't going to really stick around. Now, they have that Marching Fire, which was that huge expansion, I think, back in 2018. That added 4, I think, heroes or characters to it. Added a couple. I think that's when they added Breach, maybe. So they added stuff back in 2018. And throughout time, they've continued to add. It's just, they're reaching the phase with these live service games where I think a lot of them end up reaching, depends on how long it takes. And honestly, to credit For Honor, it took them probably 6 years, right? Because you look back at how popular this game was about a year ago, it definitely was more popular, right? And it's had kind of like peaks and stuff. I think back in November, it was actually at a low, but back in August, it was actually much higher than any of these last, say, 6 months. So it goes up and down, but it hasn't reached like good numbers, right? In a while. It's been several years, and they're still adding and they're still doing things, but they're reaching that phase that all live service games eventually will reach, right? Where you gotta decide, and I'm actually personally very curious. What do you do, right? Because you're at the end, and this game is not gonna have a miraculous turnover where suddenly it goes from 3,000 people a day to 25,000, right? It's still, people still play it, and for 6 years later, getting 2,000 to 4,000 people every day on Steam only is pretty darn good. But that number is going to keep dropping, and that number also isn't going to turn to 25 or 30,000 daily. So what do you do now, right? Eventually, you got to drop For Honor. It's not Dead by Daylight. It's not a game that's going to survive indefinitely like seemingly or like a Rocket League or Fortnite and stuff like that, right? It's not going to do it. So honestly, I feel like you got to pull the plug. and you probably do it. Now, I think they talked about year 6 content, which is this year, right? So maybe they're going to keep going throughout all of 2023, but I imagine the end is within sight. And I imagine, what, you do a For Honor 2? That's probably the only way, or another Marching Fire thing if you really want to keep it. There you go. There's For Honor in 2023. Still the same kind of game. I still enjoy it. I still feel like the same way I felt probably 6 years ago, where it's different. It hooks me. I like my characters. I don't like the characters that I don't play as. And it feels relatively the same with the modes and all that stuff, but it still does have the same problems where I still only prefer certain modes, and then it's just way more dead. So you're facing bots more often, which is just not fun. The honor is gone, where people just break these, non-handshake rules. They don't have them anymore. So that kind of stuff is definitely a turnoff as well. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.